All right, today we're doing a thought leadership episode where I'm going to be interviewed and we're talking about podcasts that I recommend personally. I've been telling everyone about these podcasts, tools that we are using in our company that I would recommend you use as well. Someone in my network who I want you to know about, a thought leader who is an expert, and then finally an issue that is affecting our industry. My guest today is Chad. He's actually going to be interviewing me, so stay tuned.
Welcome to the Smart Business Revolution podcast, where we feature top entrepreneurs, business leaders, and thought leaders and ask them how they built key relationships to get where they are today. Now, let's get started with the show.
All right, welcome everyone. John Corcoran here. I'm the host of this show, and every week we have smart CEOs, founders, and entrepreneurs from all kinds of companies, and we've had Netflix, Grubhub, Redfin, Gusto, Kinko's, lots of great episodes in the archives for you to check out. And before we get into this episode is brought to you by Rise25, where we help businesses to give to and connect to their dream relationships and partnerships. How do we do that? We do that by helping you to run your podcast. We are the easy button for any company to launch and run a podcast. We do three things: strategy, accountability, and full execution. In fact, we invented what some are calling the Wix of B2B podcasting. It's our platform, Podcast Copilot. So if you want to learn more about it, go to our website, rise25.com, or you can also email our team at support@rise25.com. And with that, I will turn it over to Chad, who will guide us through this episode.
Sounds good, John. Thanks so much for having me. Hey, we're going to talk about 4 or 5 things that you've been struck by lately. I'm going to fire each topic off at you, and you can kind of give me your thoughts and your response. The first one is maybe a podcast or a few podcasts that you've listened to recently that have been, that have caught your attention.
Okay, let's talk about these. So one, I've been kind of on a kick listening to different investment podcasts and venture capital podcasts, which is a huge trend. There's lots of venture capital companies that have started podcasts going back a number of years now. One that I've been listening to lately is the A16Z podcast. I was just listening to an episode with Justine and Olivia Moore. They are actually identical twin sisters who are partners at A16Z, which is the Andreessen Horowitz, one of the biggest venture capital firms in Silicon Valley. And they were doing an update on the latest news in generative AI and LLM AI tools that are coming out there. And so I was just really enjoying that episode recently. So definitely go check out that one. Another one I would recommend is Oh My Fraud. This was recommended to me by my friend Peter Lindy, who is not an accountant or a CPA, but this is a podcast that is accountants and CPAs talking about different frauds that have occurred. So think like Ponzi schemes, things like that. And it's just kind of talking through the situation. Really cool format for a podcast, not the usual type of format that of a podcast that I listen to. And then the next one is Living Medicine with Dr. Sandy News of Living Medicine Institute. She's a friend of ours, a client. We've helped her with that podcast. She does psychedelic assisted therapy and has been doing it for a number of years now. And also does training for therapists who want to get into psychedelic assisted therapy. And she's interviewed some real luminaries in the field. And so really interesting podcast for you to check out there.
Okay, sounds good. Be sure to check all those out. The next thing I'm going to throw at you, a tool that you use. What's something that might be beneficial to anybody who's listening?
Yeah, so I was looking over past tools that I've recommended on this show, and amazingly, I've never mentioned ChatGPT because it feels like ChatGPT is just like, well, everyone knows about it already, so why shine a light on that? But I will share a new way of using it. Excuse me. So my friend Zephyr Bree of X Movement recently shared with a small group of us a new way of using it, and that's creating ChatGPT projects. And she actually has a way of creating these custom coaches in different areas of your life. So you could have a fitness coach, you could have a health coach, you could have a romance coach, you could have a family coach, a personal coach, different types of coaches, and then you can give it different instructions. So, for example, if you're going to create a health coach, let's say you want to get better at health and fitness, you could give it certain instructions and say, I want you to behave, be very very tough with me and very abrupt and straight into the and to the purpose. And then you can have a different coach with different set of instructions. That's maybe your relationship coach or something like that, and you want them to communicate with you in a different way. And then you could also upload documents. So if it's your health coach, you could upload your lab work, you could upload your fitness results or something like that, so that it has that basis of knowledge when it is working with you. And then you can go and consult it at any time. If you wake up at 3 in the morning and you decide you need an hour and a half worth of talking through a particular issue, unlike a real coach, there aren't many coaches you can wake up at 3 in the morning and say, I want to talk for an hour. So you can use it at any time using that. So that's a really cool tool. It's using projects inside of ChatGPT.
Wow, that is awesome. It seems like there's always something new, even though ChatGPT is on everybody's mind. It seems like there's always something new that you could do with it every day that you hear about. Do you ever feel like you're running behind on ChatGPT?
Oh, I always feel like I'm running behind. Less so ChatGPT and more just all the different tools that
Hmm.
are out there, because there are so many different ones and there are different ways of using it. Another one that I just discovered was you can manipulate numbers in a table inside of ChatGPT or other tools as well. And so I shared in a group and I said, "Oh, guys, I just discovered you can upload a bunch of numbers. You can upload bank statements. You can have it spit out these numbers. You can have it do math on it. It's not perfect." But then someone said, well, try doing that in Gemini, because then if you do it in Gemini, Gemini is a Google product. It works directly with Google Sheets, so you can export it directly into Google
Hmm.
Sheets. So yeah, I hadn't thought about that. I tried it, and it turns out it did work a little bit better using that. So for me, it's more the challenge of different tools that are out there, and then there are new things that come out, like VO3 is a new one, which is a video production platform. People creating some mind blowing, new videos. Um, I get excited about that because the last 30 years, 30 years ago, when I was in high school, I was interested in becoming an animator. And this was back in the age of hand-drawn animation. And, very quickly it turned to computer animation. And at the time, the hand-drawn animation studios were fearful that this was going to decimate their industry. Well, now, flash forward 30 years later, there's way more animated movies, animated TV shows, animated content that's produced than there was before the dawn of computer assisted animation. I think that's going to happen with television production. My brother actually works in television production, and it's very, very, very expensive and time consuming to create television content. You have to hire lots of people. You have to rent big spaces. You have to rent equipment. We may get to a point where you can create television, you can create what looks like real TV, um, in a lot less expensive scale, not needing to hire as many people. But what ends up happening is then it produces a lot more content, a lot more specific content, a lot more narrow niche type of content to meet everyone's different needs. So the same way that 25 years ago we had a handful of media, sources out there. We had CBS, NBC, ABC, we had Fox News, we had those kind of big sources. And now we have many, many different more sources to meet every different kind of interest out there. So a similar thing I think could happen with video production. That's just kind of as a side on that.
Yeah. With AI, on my phone, if I hit Google on my phone, it comes up basically like the Google feed is basically a sports article, and then some sort of new AI that I could benefit from, sports article, some sort of new AI that I could benefit from, and they all look great, but then you have to pay for every single one. So it's like streaming services. Which ones do I pay for, and which ones do I just ignore?
Well, that's a great point, right? I mean, no one wants to enter a world where all of a sudden we have to pay for 10 different, streaming services. Um, and we have to pay for 10 different AI tools out there. So I think people will be selective about it. And to a certain extent, it might be similar to like cable television, right? Where, there's some kind of diversification where there's a lot of different channels, there's a lot of different networks, and then they get sick of that. And so then there's some
Hmm.
kind of like consolidation, and maybe ChatGPT buys other tools or Google buys other tools. And so they all become part of one subscription together. That'll definitely shake out, I think, over the next, 5, 10 years or so.
Yeah, I could see that. Okay, next topic. Someone in your network who has influenced you recently.
I had a great conversation and interview with Ed O'Keefe. Ed is someone who's been a friend of Rise25. He and Jeremy both live in Chicago, so they know each other really well. He's been a client. And this is a perfect example of why I recommend people do podcasts all the time because he's someone that he's busy. I'm busy. He has 7 kids. I have 4 kids. We're not going to just, drop everything and hop on a call and catch up. But when you use a podcast for it, it's a great excuse to catch up with one another, and you record it, you upload it, you turn it into an episode, you are highlighting someone. So I'm telling others about Ed and the work that he does. The guy has just done so many different things. He started supplement companies. He's been a motivational speaker, loves speaking on stage. He has something called Offer Wingman, where he partners with companies that are doing masterminds and selling into communities, and he helps them with improving their offers. And so it was just such a great excuse to catch up with someone. And then, of course, what ends up happening, this happens all the time, is then after the conversation was over, is like, hey, how can we keep this going? Like, how can we work together in the future? And so we have another call scheduled where we're going to talk about ways in which we can collaborate. And so that, is an ideal scenario when you are interviewing someone that you haven't had a chance to catch up with in a while. There's a lot of potential synergies between your company and their company, and ways in which you can explore other ways to, do more work together.
Yeah, wow, sounds good. Wow, he does all that stuff and 7 kids. Did he mention that he sleeps at all?
I don't think he sleeps at all, but he comes from 13 kids and his wife comes from 8.
Oh, wow.
So they're clearly the slackers of the family.
I can tell.
Yeah.
All right, next one. Maybe an issue in your industry that you find yourself having to deal with.
Yeah, an interesting one we've been experimenting with internally is how to get more views to YouTube videos. Now, YouTube is the number 2 search engine out there. And so people go directly to YouTube and they search for content. They also search in Google, and what do you know? One of the top results is YouTube videos. So one way or the other, people are ending up on YouTube. And if it's a ghost town, if you've got 7 views in some video, it doesn't convey a lot of credibility. And so we've developed a process where, one, we get more views to certain YouTube videos where it's a priority. We spend some money on real, speaking viewers, ads to English speaking viewers, where they will view these videos, and then your view count goes up, so you get more exposure that way. But then also, in addition, you're telling your guest about it. So you would do this with a key referral partner like an Ed O'Keefe, like I mentioned earlier, or a strategic partner, or someone that you interview that it's a really important relationship for you. And then, got to take this off your plate because everyone's busy and they don't have time to do this. But send a series of polite messages to that person, letting them know, hey, we're driving some traffic to this video to get some more exposure for it, and then send them an email a week later, says, hey, guess what, it's up, our view count's over 1,000 views. Send an email a week after that, hey, guess what, the view count is over 3,000 views. Send an email two weeks after that, hey, guess what, the view count's over 10,000 views. And these things are all achievable. And in today's busy world, I mean, I can't keep up with all the push notifications and stuff, and LinkedIn and and Instagram, all the kind of stuff. But if someone sends me an email and says, hey, remember that email we did 3 weeks ago? There's now 5,000 views. Oh, and send me an email a week later that says, oh, there's now 10,000 views. I mean, I'm paying attention to that. And also, I value that person who is going and spending their own hard-earned dollars to get views on that video. And so for you as a guest on other podcasts, it provides real value. And so that's something that we've done, and we're now beta testing it with clients, giving them the ability to do that as well.
Last question for you. It's kind of about maybe client work or challenges that you see people facing, maybe who are clients or people that you've worked with. Is there a recent story that you have for us?
Yeah, so I was having a conversation with Kathy Widener. KMC University is the name of her company. She is someone who is an expert in the chiropractic space. So she helps serve chiropractors. That's her community. And this is something that I see commonly, that people are already putting out content and they're asking us, how do we get more exposure for the content we're already creating? So they're doing stuff on Facebook groups. They're doing stuff on YouTube channels. And a lot of times it's not getting a lot of exposure. So I say to people all the time, take this further and use a podcast to get more exposure for it. You're already putting in the effort, you're already putting in the energy. So take it even further. And so that's something that I say to people, I recommend to people. Maybe you're putting content on LinkedIn and you can take this and you can repurpose it, make it into an audio. You could even use AI voices these days to create it into an audio. Or maybe you're sharing some content in a Facebook group or something like that. And a lot of times, if you're already creating this stuff, a company like ours can go and grab that and can turn it into podcast content without you having to lift a finger. And you're just getting more mileage out of it.
So it just puts it on multiple different platforms that it's not already on.
Exactly. And the thing that people don't realize about podcasting is that you send it out once on one feed and it goes multiple different places. So it goes to Spotify, it goes to Amazon Music, it goes to Pandora, it goes to, all these different places, and more are being added. And so you're just getting all this additional exposure from it. So it's a great thing to do if you're already creating content.
Okay, good stuff. Any final thoughts on any of this stuff?
Yeah, it's an exciting time right now. There's a lot of changes that are happening, and it can be a bit overwhelming to keep tab of all the changes, but it also is an exciting time because I think I see a lot of growth and people, when I got into the digital world, putting content through blogs and podcasts, over 15 years ago, 16 years ago now, it didn't have anywhere near the credibility. And now, and even this is a lot of what I was talking about in my interview with Ed O'Keefe, is people view they see someone being people see people being interviewed on interviews on other channels, on other podcasts, and that bestows credibility. It bestows a lot of credibility. And so you get credibility if you're out there doing interviews, and you're also getting credibility if you're being a guest on other podcasts. And so I think that will grow. And we also know that that is a mark of authenticity, which is what we talked about the last time you and I did one of these, is going to be incredibly important these days to do things that are authentic, because we will know we can trust it. In a world where there's a lot of fake content out there, we'll know we can trust authenticity. Not everyone, right? There are people that are it's authentic, but we don't trust them. But if you have authenticity and people trust you, then there will be people will put a premium on that.
I've heard you mentioned the credibility associated with interviews and being on an interview podcast or hosting one. I've heard some people say, the future of B2B podcasting is multiple hosts having hot takes, and interviews are going to kind of go by the wayside. Your response to that?
I think that there's a role for that, but if it's multiple hosts just having an eternal conversation, what I've seen over 15, 16 years now is that those types of podcasts tend to not last very long. It's very, very rare. People tend to lose motivation after a little while. And you're also really missing out on the benefit of having outside guests. And so a lot of times I've seen people start out with a format like that, and then eventually they start bringing in guests because they realize that it brings in fresh content for their listeners, fresh perspectives. And, eventually you run out of content to talk about. I mean, one of the biggest podcasts of the last year or 2 years or so was Andrew Huberman. And he started out, I believe, only doing quote internal podcasts where he was just talking to a microphone, sharing wisdom. And he's been an academic, he's been a professor for a lot of years, so there's a lot that he could talk about. But that gets really tiring quickly. And it gets tiring both for the person who's doing it, and it gets tiring for the listener. So it just introduces new content by bringing in new voices to bring in outside guests in that format.
Okay, sounds good. Hey, John, always great to talk to you. Thanks so much for having me today.
Great chat. Thanks.
So long, everybody. Thanks for listening to the Smart Business Revolution podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.